What's up, guys? So before we get into it, if you are on the Instagram Live, comment the word case study. If you are interested in learning about the program that we have coming up, we're going to be running it starting September 29th. But if you start up soon, you are eligible for a nice bonus. So if you're interested in working with me, make sure you comment case study on the live stream right here, and I will get you over some information. But we are going to get straight into the podcast today. And guys, I am super excited. We're going to be telling a little bit of a story about one of my athletes today. So soon I actually want to get him back on the podcast. He's been on, like, I think it was like episode like 300 something, which we're into the 500s now. So it's been a little while, but I want to get him back on here to talk about this more in detail. But it's an important one. So we're going to get into it right away. We're telling a little bit of a story today, talking about a mindset lesson that is going to be extremely, extremely beneficial for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dussault. And today we are telling a little bit of a story. We are giving you a very, very important mindset lesson in learning how to take the bad things that happen to you and use them as fuel to make more good things happen in the future. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to tell a little bit of a story. So I had an athlete, one of my athletes recently. I'm not going to name names just because I didn't actually like talk to him about this, but I do believe that it's an important lesson. So I'm going to tell the story. So, an athlete of mine recently had a fight against an opponent, as you do, and the opponent didn't show up to weigh-ins, and then kind of submitted a video that quote unquote proved that he was on weight. And this is obviously kind of sketchy, and this was not the first time that this has happened on this promotion. So my athlete was understandably upset. The guy showed up the next day for the fight and was absolutely enormous. So, kind of just furthering that thought of like, maybe he didn't actually make weight. Not to mention that he also apparently fought a few weeks later and then missed weight at a higher weight class. So, very hard to believe that he was able to make weight, blew up so big that then, within the month, he wasn't able to make a weight class higher than he was supposed to make in this last one. Either way, I digress. Basically, what this athlete was telling me was, when this happened, obviously he was pissed off. But thinking back on it, after it's been a little bit of time now, it happened, a couple of months ago. After this happened, he said, looking back on it, he realized that he let this affect him and he let this take away from how he was able to perform. Right? He almost used it as an excuse before the fight even started. He was like, this guy's way too big. He didn't make weight. And he said, even in a couple of moments in the fight, the fight's going on, and he's thinking about like, oh, this, like, well, I won't repeat the words, but it's like, oh, this fucking guy didn't make weight, like, and was just like frustrated through the whole fight, talking about how, like, kind of in his head being like, this guy didn't make weight. This fight wasn't fair. Anyways, he ended up getting illegally hit and wasn't able to continue. So, story for another day. Weirdly enough, I think this is one of the stupidest rules in this sport. Like, apparently, if you're up on the cards and then you land an illegal blow that makes the opponent not able to continue, it's not a no contest. You just win, which I think is ridiculous. But anyway, moving on. Whole experience was an absolute nightmare. This guy, again, fought a guy who was way bigger than him, already going up a weight class, somebody that clearly hadn't made the weight properly. Then he got hit illegally a number of times in the fight, ended up not being able to continue, and then ends up taking a loss because of it. Now, immediately after the fight, I remember having conversations with him, and he was pissed. And I mean, as you would be. And I kept reinforcing with him too. It's like, I completely agree. I would be pissed too. I wouldn't be happy about this. I wouldn't be, just like, back to the drawing board. Like, yeah, let yourself be upset. Let yourself feel that. It's fucking annoying. But after looking back on it, after a little bit more time removed, having this conversation with this athlete, he said, he was like, the biggest mistake he made was he let it affect the fight. Right. So it's like he, made the decision to fight regardless. But then as the fight was going on, he said, like, he was going in, he was trying to make moves, and he was like, he would try something, and you realize like, oh, the guy's a little too big. I can't do this thing that I want to do. And he's like, usually if I try something and then that move doesn't work, I think about, what do I do next? With this guy, he had almost beaten himself up to the point of like, well, I tried this. Well, I can't do it because he's too big. And then he was kind of let it defeat him and not let himself perform to the way he knew he was able. And this brings me to the point of the story. When you have something like this happen, when you have, an unfair situation, something go wrong in your life, whether it's sport related or otherwise, you have two ways that you can take that. Either A, you can do what this athlete admitted that he did to himself in this fight and kind of let it defeat you, be like, this thing isn't fair, sucks to be me, it is what it is, I'm out. Or you can understand that no matter what else happens, you can only control one thing, which is the way you show up, right? Like another kind of example of this is I have athletes quite often tell me that, well, I can't, I want to be a professional fighter, but I can't because there's no good gyms in my area. So, okay, you can sit around and you can say there's no good gyms in my area, so I can't be a professional fighter, or find a new area that you're able to actually pursue that dream or that passion that you have, right? Is it easy? Of course not. But you have the choice of making the difficult decision to actually be able to give your dream a shot or staying where you're at and complaining about why it's not fair and you won't be able to do it. And so after looking back on this fight, that's exactly what this athlete was saying to me. He was saying like, yeah, in the moment, I just let it defeat me. Like I, almost had an excuse before the fight actually went down to be like, oh yeah, well, I couldn't do this because, this guy was way too big or this was happening or that was happening. Whereas now I'm understanding that I beat myself because I made the decision I can't do this because he's too big before actually doing it. And in the fight, he had good moments. He was he almost won the fight a couple of different ways, but mentally he was going into it in such a bad spot that he almost beat himself. Right. And this is what you guys need to think about. Whatever situation you're faced with, whether it is something similar to this athlete in a fight, or whether it's, something in life, whether it's something in training, whatever it might be, are you going to let it defeat you? Because like when I have that conversation with athletes, they say there's no good gym in my area, so I can't pursue this dream that I have. I really, really want it. I'm willing to do anything, but there's no good gym in my area, so I can't. Okay, you can just say okay, and then like, well, sucks to suck, sucks for you, or you can figure out how you can show up better. And that's the conversation that I had with this guy as well. Is like when you come into another unfair situation or something shitty that happens, because this won't be the last. How are you going to approach it? Right? You need to bring it back to what can I control? You need to bring it back to what can I actually do about this situation? So, like, let's say guy doesn't make weight, or a guy, does something super sketchy, like sends in a video that quote unquote shows him making weight, like it happened this time. Well, what can you actually do? Number one, you can not take the fight because if they're being sketchy and weird, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Number two, you can take the fight. You make the decision to take the fight. Now you got to understand the weigh-ins happened. It is what it is. I can be upset about that, but it was up to me whether or not I wanted to take the fight, and I decided to take the fight. So now that's in the past. I can't sit and use that as an excuse anymore and be like, well, yeah, it wasn't fair because, he did whatever. It's like, I understand what I was up against, and I made the decision to take it. So now when you go into the fight, it's the same thing. You've got to understand there might be some places where you're going in and you're not able to execute the way that you normally would because this guy might have an unfair advantage over you. But then you got to come back and understand I made the decision to allow this to go forward when he had this unfair advantage over me. So how am I going to show up? How am I going to take it? Am I going to complain about that? It's not going to do me any good. Or am I going to try to creatively figure out how I can beat this guy anyway? You guys get what I'm saying? And the reason this is so important and the reason I wanted to touch on it is because plain and simple, it's everything. It's the way you approach everything. It's if you can approach it this way, then you keep control. But if you just point the finger and you give the responsibility to something else or to someone else, then you're just giving up control. You're saying it's not my fault. I can't do it. There's nothing I can do about it. But there is, right? Maybe if he had gone into this fight with a different mindset, maybe the result's different. Maybe it's not. Maybe the guy was just plain and simple too fucking big and there was no way for it to really happen fairly. But maybe the result's different. Maybe he pushed a little harder in one position and then was able to secure it instead of kind of letting it go because he felt like it wasn't a fair fight. Right. But by keeping control and deciding I'm up against this guy, but I can beat this guy, you're going to go into every fight in a way better mental position. And by going into that fight in a way better mental position, you're going to put yourself in a much better mental position to actually win when it comes down to it as well. And the big thing I want to reinforce with that too is this goes for every area of your career, right? I have a lot of fighters tell me that, they want a strength and conditioning coach, but, oh, I'm just too broke. Money's too tight right now. Listen, I get money being tight. Trust me, I've been there. I've been there so many times that I can't count it. But you have the ability to have some control over that. And I know you might be hearing that saying, no, I don't. Like, I only make X amount an hour, or, my job is only this many days a week, or whatever it is. But guys, we live in the age of social media. We live in the age of social media where I've built my business off of social media, right? If you're an athlete, whatever area you're in, you have control over sitting down and creating some sponsorship packages and then going door to door with local businesses, presenting these sponsorship packages and trying to find 1 to 2 to 3 sponsors that can either pay you some money or give you free stuff, whether that's supplements, training gear, whatever it might be, that saves you some money. Is it going to completely fix your tough financial situation? Maybe not. But imagine if you had 2 sponsors paying you $250 a month. That's $500 a month in exchange for some posts on your social media account. And then you had another sponsor paying you giving you free supplements. If you spend $100 a month on supplements, now that's $600 a month you're making because you took ownership, right? And too many people are too quick to just point at everything else, say, it's not my fault I deal with this. It's not my fault this happened to me. It's not my fault I can't do it because of this. And those excuses might be valid. Money might be tight. Your job might, only be a certain amount of days per week. You might only get paid a certain number of dollars per hour. But can you truly look in the mirror and say, I'm doing everything I can to fix this situation? If not, then shut up. There's no nicer way to put it. If you're not doing what you can to fix the situation, stop fucking complaining about it. Stop saying I'm broke and I can't afford the coaching I need or I can't make the investments, blah, blah, blah. If you're not actively trying to fix the fact that you're broke, whether that's cutting down on the expenses that you have that you know you don't need, or whether that's putting together sponsorship packages to start approaching businesses about, things that you can do that can better your situation, whatever it might be, because you have control. And when you take the control you have and actually do something with it, you'd be amazed at what kind of changes you can make. One other of my athletes has been in the program with me for 4 months, 3 months. I can't remember off the top of my head, but 3 or 4 months, like not a super long time. And just based off of 5 or 6 conversations that we've had about, building sponsorship packages and things like that, he's gone out and he's secured 3 local sponsors. One is doing videography and photo work for him so he can improve his social media presence so that he can attract more sponsors. One gives him free supplements and another one is paying him monthly. So now he's making money, getting free supplements and then getting free photo and video work done, all because he took ownership. He didn't sit around and say, "Oh, I'm just an amateur and nobody wants to sponsor me." He thought, "Well, I may as well try. I may as well put the packages together. I may as well approach the businesses. I may as well try to figure it out." And then as he figured it out, he's got 3 sponsors. I know high-level pros that don't have 3 sponsors because they're too busy saying, "Oh, I can't get it because of this, this, or that." But guys, when you take ownership, when you make the decision that you're going to make the change, it's amazing how quickly these things can happen. So the biggest thing I want you guys to take away from this as we wrap it up is ask yourself what part of your training, what part of your life, no matter where it is, where are you giving responsibility to other things, right? Where are you saying, oh, it's not my fault, it's because of this? Where are you, not measuring up? Where are you falling short? What things are you not doing that you know you could do that can help improve your situation, whether that's financially, whether that's in your sport itself, actually in training or in your fights? What area are you doing that? And what is one thing that you can make a change to in order to help better your situation in the future? And again, that one thing might be putting together sponsorships and approaching 5 businesses. And guess what? You put those packages together and you approach 5 businesses, they might all say no. But that doesn't mean you stop, and that doesn't mean that nobody wants to sponsor you. You just haven't found the right ones yet. Especially in the world of social media, there's thousands of businesses out there. You just need to learn how to approach them, how to build the packages, and which ones are going to actually be interested in being the one who jumps onto your team. So, guys, as always, I appreciate you for tuning in. I hope you got some value from that. I hope there was a little bit of a wake up in the mindset. And as always, I hope you got some value. If you did, I would love to know what it is. Shoot me a message across any of my social media platforms to tell me what you were able to take away. As always, I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode.